Welcome everybody. So glad that you could make it out and be part of this demonstration. It's something that when using this product, I've just been blown away with its versatility and how easily it is an inclusion into so many different food products. So without further ado, what I'd love to make for you right now is a mayonnaise. And that mayonnaise is gonna be used, the star of the show as an egg replacer is gonna be what you see right here, which is the fine grind navy bean pulse Visco enhancer. So in order to get this show started, what we wanna do is I'm gonna use a blender here, and I'm gonna start off by taking that navy bean flour, adding it to the blender. And what we wanna do first is just to make sure that we're getting it nicely incorporated and hydrated. We're gonna start off with a little bit of water. Okay, in this case, 110 grams of water. And we'll turn on our mixer. There we go. Now what we wanna do is we'll let that go for about a minute or so, okay? 30 seconds to a minute, just like I say, to fully hydrate that pulse flour. In the meantime, I'll talk about some of the other ingredients that I add to this that aid in it becoming a mayonnaise. So, in this container right here, I have some mustard powder, which adds as an emulsifier. We have our binder being the navy bean flour in place of the egg, a little bit of salt, sugar, okay, and then a little bit of xanthan gum just to help keep that water and navy bean emulsion stabilized. Okay, so we're gonna add our dry ingredients now. Now you notice, see how quickly that started to thicken up? It's gonna become almost, well, I wanna say paste-like, but it's gonna start to thicken up quite dramatically. Once that's mixed and fully incorporated, we're gonna add our vinegar. Because of course, when you're making any type of dressing or mayonnaise, you wanna have some acidity to it, so we're gonna add our vinegar. What vinegar you use, that could be up to you, very optional. In this case, this is just white table vinegar, a very basic recipe. You could use a white wine vinegar, you could use a cider vinegar, heck, you can even use a balsamic vinegar if you want. Once again, add that till it fully mixes. And then we're on to adding our oil, okay? Just like any mayonnaise, our emulsion happens with the addition of the oil at a slow rate, okay? So you don't want to pour it in too fast. You don't want to split this emulsion. Gradually turn up the speed. Now what's amazing about this mayonnaise is it's got a beautiful white color and an ultra fine texture that you have no distinguishable particles or leftover pastiness from the navy bean flour because it is so fine. Just gonna make sure we're fully mixed here. Oh yeah. Okay, we can turn off that noise now. Now you'll see, just look at this smooth, velvety consistency. Shiny, beautiful. I mean, that looks better than any, I think, prepared mayonnaise that you buy on store shelves right now, okay? And what's beautiful about this is, you know, I like as a chef, I like the snow white color of it because then it leaves it very neutral for any other application that I want to add to it. So I want to add different herbs or different spices. It's a very neutral palette, so I'm not trying to overcome any other color, right? So I'll get all my mayonnaise out. And then this is our base. So it's like our mother sauce, if you will, right? So our mayonnaise now can be turned into a plethora of different dressings. In this case, the two that I want to show you today that I think are pretty phenomenal is, and they're very popular with the general public, is a ranch dressing and a Caesar dressing, okay? Who likes ranch? I do, I do. Who likes Caesar? Everyone likes Caesar, okay? That's why it's a popular dressing. All right, so in order to do so, I'm just gonna weigh out 100 grams of my mayonnaise. And then like I say, this is, you know, one of a multitude of different dressings you can make. I just chose this one because, like I say, the popularity and the, you know, the ease of equating it to a store-bought ranch. Like, you know what ranch tastes like, so when you taste this one, you're like, wow, that's ranch, okay? What I want to do to make it a dressing that's going to be pourable, okay, or coat the salad nicely, is I want to thin it down a little bit, okay? So in this case, I'm using some oat milk, but you could use any type of variety. You could probably use water, you could use soya milk. In this case, I'm using oat milk. I'm just going to add that to the mayonnaise. Like I say, this is just to thin it down, okay? Whisk that together. And then, of course, in my ranch dressing, I'm gonna have my parsley, black pepper, onion powder, and dill, okay? And what I like about this one too, I have a couple different that we're obviously doing today, but this one is just completely dry ingredients, okay? So when we're talking about, you know, manufacturing or upscaling something like this, it's easy to do because it's just dry ingredients, okay? So you could do any kind of spice blend, spice mix, boom, add that to your base mayonnaise, and you have, like I say, a bunch of different types of dressing. But this one is a dry one, okay? So that is our ranch. This one, I would say, is probably, with any of these dressings, is gonna be, it's like, you know, when you make a soup or a stew at home, with the dried herbs, it's gonna be nice to let that sit for a little bit to really meld the flavors, okay? It's like when you're making a pot of stew and then you add like a bunch of thyme, you know, at the end, you need it to have time to really develop the flavor. So, you know, you can make this, you know, a couple hours in advance, let those flavors harmonize, and it's good to go. Do we wanna see Caesar? We wanna see Caesar. Okay, same thing, we're gonna take 100 grams of our mayonnaise base, perfecto. And in this case, I want to use what I would, I guess, classify as a little bit more fresher ingredients, okay? So a Caesar dressing, typically you want to have some fresh garlic, right? You want to have some capers, you want to have some Parmesan cheese. So I did modify it slightly. I do have the capers, I do have the lemon juice. Instead of using fresh garlic, once again, I just used the garlic powder, okay? But you could use either. For the cheese to emulate the Parmesan cheese, I just used a vegan substitute, okay? Just so that this one can still be considered vegetarian, right? So what I do with this one is I'm gonna add my capers, my cheese, my lemon juice, and my garlic powder to the food processor. And I'm just gonna give this a quick little pulse. All right. Now we're gonna add some of our other flavoring agents that we're so used to being in Caesar. I do have a little bit of nutritional yeast to give it some umami flavor, but then I've also got my, once again, the garlic powders in there, nutritional yeast, salt, and then of course parsley. Now what I've found when I've made this dressing, it all depends on what type of consistency, you know, the consumer is looking for or you're looking for. This one is quite thick, so as this sits in the fridge overnight, it doesn't get solid, but it will thicken up quite a bit. Now, we could simply add some sort of liquid content to thin that down and adjust your consistency. Okay, so it all depends on how thick you like your Caesar dressing. I know myself, when I'm making a fresh, like tableside Caesar, those dressings, they are quite thick, okay? So once again, it's all about personal preference on that one. Give this a pulse too. As simple as that, we have our two dressings. We've got, and what I also truly like about this one here as well is the color. As you can see, it's got sort of that little bit of yellow tinge to it, which makes you believe that it was made with eggs. Right answer. Beautiful. Okay, and you can see it's got, you know, that consistency, I would say, of a homemade Caesar, a nice, thick, emulsified Caesar dressing. So once again, this was all made, okay, largely in part to the fine grind navy bean pulse Visco enhancer, the star of the show. made our mayonnaise, which is our base, okay? And you recall it's just a very silky, stable, smooth, delicious product, which then was able to go into a secondary dressing, the ranch, and then another one, the Caesar. Do we have any questions? I made a batch of mayonnaise, one of the first ones, and I just put it in my fridge. I want to say about a month and a half later, I pulled it out. Nothing had changed with it. It looked exactly like the day I made it. Kept it in the fridge, but it was no splitting, no water started to come out, nothing.
And can we taste it?
Oh my God! Probably the most important question. You can taste that right away. We're not done yet. Have I got something else I want to show you? Okay. I made a gravy mix with this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Once again, use the fine grind navy bean pulse Visco enhancer, and I made some biscuits. So we're gonna have biscuits and gravy.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to one of the other things that I'm honestly extremely excited about. And this was starting to work with some different gravy mixes and you know, coming up with something that would be a functional replacement for your typical starches that are, you know, in those sauce mixes that you might buy at the store. So instead of the cornstarch, once again, I went back to the start of the show, the fine grind navy bean pulse Visco enhancer. And what's neat about this one is I actually have a pretty high percentage inclusion of the flour, of the navy bean flour, and still, once again, undetectable, okay? So for example, this right here, which doesn't look like that much, makes 300 mLs of gravy. So for a typical family of say 4 people, that's lots, right? And in this, okay, when we talk about ratios, there's approximately 17% navy bean flour in this dish right here, okay? And when we talk about translating that to the health benefits, you're looking at, what was that, Margaret?
Proteins around 25%.
Proteins.
Fibers about 19%.
Fiber.
And micronutrients.
Okay, so we're getting the same function as the cornstarch, but healthier. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I just take this. I've got some different flavorings here. I've got a little bit of yeast extract to give it some umami flavor. I've got, of course, a little bit of salt and some onion powder and some garlic powder just to sort of give it that reminiscent flavor of a gravy. And one of the things that I used that was pretty interesting and has worked right now, there might be a better substitute as I keep working on this one, is I used instant coffee. Huh. Okay, a very small amount. Okay, there's 1 gram of instant coffee in this whole mixture right here. And that was just to add, once again, a little bit of depth of flavor and then, of course, get some color. I have my dry mix right here. I'm gonna add that to my boiling water. I'm going to whisk. And what I've found in my little, you know, different trials here is that if I keep whisking and let that cook out for about 45 seconds to a minute, I get the full gelatinization, okay? I get the full thickness achieved that I'm looking for. Okay, so it doesn't have to cook up for a long time to get the thickening properties that a cornstarch would supply. Another thing that I believe chefs, industry partners would be amazed at with this is the shine. Because as chefs and culinarians, we're always trying to have like a sauce that's smooth, you know, rich, velvety, but also has a nice shine to it. So a typical way to do that with a lot of different mother sauces, okay, is you monte it with butter. Okay, so butter, you know, expensive, delicious, once again, not vegan, but this one, as you'll notice, has an amazing shine to it.
It looks like gravy.
Yeah, and once again, this, I made it so it kind of looks like, it's a little bit lighter than a beef gravy. It's like more along the lines of something that might be in the classification of a pork gravy, okay? Or something like a pork jus that you'd add. You could go and find some different color enhancers to make it darker, so it would be like, you know, that real rich, bold, dark-looking gravy from beef drippings. So this one, as it stands right now, Once again, you could adjust your consistencies. So I have about, like I mentioned, 17% navy bean flour in there. I could easily incorporate more, or I could reduce my water content to get a thicker consistency. Okay, some people, hey, they like their gravies, you know, where you could stick a spoon up in it. You know, some like it very thin, so it's more like a jus. I think that, you know, once some customer trials were maybe done to see what the general consensus is, you could dial in exactly what thickness you're looking for by just adjusting that ratio of that pulse flour, the navy bean flour. So once again, this has been simmering, okay, for about, well, I would say 5 minutes since I started. Not that you have to, but I just want to also show the fact that even after 5 minutes, okay, I have not lost any of the thickening properties, okay? So, like I say, this once again, I made it so it's almost like a light gravy. You could adjust that consistency. So I don't want you to think consistency right here. I want you to think the flavor, and I want you to think the possibilities. So once again, I've got the fine grind navy bean pulse Visco enhancer, okay, as the, you know, the main egg replacement in this. So there's no eggs whatsoever. It's a completely dry mix. And then of course I got some malt powder just to give it that malted waffle flavor. Okay, I've got some general all-purpose flour. All right, I got a little bit of sugar. And then of course, I put in this one, and I found through my trials that of course, you always need a leavening agent, and in a lot of times pancakes or waffles, it's gonna be baking powder, right? So I used baking powder, totally cool. I got the lift that I was looking for, but it completely did not have the structure. It would stay, but when I opened it up and, you know, wanted to see the interior part of the waffle, it wasn't right. Okay, so I was like, hey, what am I gonna do? So I modified a few things, and then I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm trying to get some structure in order. I got the leavening, but I need it to stay there, right? So I ended up adding cream of tartar, okay, and then just a little bit of baking soda as well. Okay, so I've got 3 active leaveners in this, and I tell you, it makes a difference. If you do it just with the baking powder, it doesn't end up the same. So this one, once again, super simple, okay? I'm gonna measure out, or I have my measured out water. That's all you gotta do. Weigh out water, mix, and then in this case, we're gonna go to the waffle iron. If you're making pancakes, you're gonna go to the griddle. I found that, you know, a good sized pancake, I mean, heck, you can make dollar pancakes, you can make, you know, you wanna make chongers, that's fine too. But I found 5-inch or so, 6-inch in diameter were a great pancake, okay? That way, if you wanted to, the person, the client, whatever, the customer could have 3 pancakes, and it looks great. It looks like a filling amount. It's got 3 stacks to it, okay? This one here, I got super pumped when I was asked, okay, can you make a waffle recipe? Because I just so happen to have a 1940s original cast iron waffle maker, okay, that makes Belgian style and size waffles. You're gonna pour in your batter. Okay, now you don't wanna pour in too much so that it overfills and spills out everywhere, but you wanna make sure that A, you've got enough. Listen to this. Come on, right? They don't make them like that anymore. So, yeah, you're gonna add, you know, just the amount to cover the base of the waffle iron. Don't overfill it, because of course you've got your leavening agents in there that are going to cause it to erupt if you add too much. That's fine, that's normal. That's good with this waffle maker. I like to see a little bit come out the sides. That way I know I have that inside full.
Perfect waffle.
You know, and like the color, right, is that of a typical, you know, waffle recipe that would have to contain, you know, eggs, all right, in order to get that golden brown color. Yeah, the butter would help in a regular recipe, but still the eggs would definitely assist in the color. It's exciting when you can have a product that's as easy to use and versatile and gives you tons of options as a chef. You know, different avenues to pursue, right? Because I mean, what did we do? We made dressings with it, we made mayonnaise with it, we're making pancakes with it, we made a gravy with it, all with that same flour. So if that doesn't show you versatility, you know, I don't know what does.